Good to have you join us on this segment of Daybreak Africa, reaching you from KAFTAN TV Ondo State. I am Kareen Edet. So on our today's episode, we have a very important subject matter. But before then, at the Canex Live Theatre closing ceremony of the third Intro African Trade Fair 2023 in Cairo recently, the Nobel laureate Professor Wole Soyinka said that technology is creating new generations of illiterates in the Nigerian society, which begs the question whether or not he's right, or from what aspect or perspective is he coming from. And we have a guest with us, Philip Spirit. He is a technology expert, and we trust that he will shed more light on this topic. Good morning, Phillips.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good to have you on the show.
Finally, good morning to you, Phillips.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing great. It's a bright day.
All right. Looking at what the statement of Professor Wole Soyinka, which he said the technology is creating a new generation of illiterates. You, as a technology expert, what is your take on this statement?
From the perspective is coming from, because the word literacy itself needs to be looked into. When you say technology is raising more illiterate people, what exactly do you term an illiterate person to be? Because to me, literacy has to do with societal value, and literacy has to do with communication system, especially when it comes into morals and the societal values. So if you say technology is actually raising illiterate, it means it's raising people that lack communication and societal value, in which I would say it depends on the perspective of things, the way you view or where you are viewing it from. For example, if you view it from the level of people who are always on social media from the morning to the evening, and they practically don't have time to do things in real life, maybe things to assist their parents or things to actually get a better living for themselves, we can say yes. But holistically, technology as a tool has brought more improvement on literacy, because there's a side of literacy which is education. And there's no way you want to raise literate people without educating them, either formally or informally, in which technology has actually improved over time. And that's why I still say that it's not something to raise a whole conclusion for, except maybe if there is a proper data analysis system where we can now compare how much of people that are actually in the negative side to the people in the positive side.
Okay, so in as much as he mentioned that technology is actually generating generation of illiterates in the Nigerian society, is the Nigeria for me. But he then said that the advancement of technology is actually marvelous and liberating. In other words, just like you said, it has the positive aspect and of course the negative aspect. But from where he is coming from, if I am correct at all, it's more like people's attention have been shifted to the negative, well, I don't know if I should call it negative, because I mean, communication comes in different forms. We can communicate through music, through entertainment, through other. So, but it's more like people have shifted from what it was created for, to something more of pleasure, more of leisure, that is probably not contributing to the advancements of the country. So when he says this, what do you think he meant by this? He has actually condemned, but at the same time he's also praising. But it's more like people's focus have been shifted from what it was actually created to be. So what would you say regarding this?
Well, whenever any new thing is introduced, there will always be people who welcome it, and there will always be people who does not welcome it. And the truth is, technology aside, literacy and illiteracy problem has been over time. With or without technology, people still find means of getting involved in things that makes them illiterate. So everything that comes to advance human being always come with positive and negativity.
Sure.
Think of it, when there was no technology, we still have people who are still illiterate. They engage in other things to keep their illiteracy. Now, when technology comes into play, it advances these people who are not ready to be literate. Whereas people who actually want to be literate, technology also advances their literacy process. I mean, I don't need to travel to UK to get my master's in UK right now. Same way, I don't need to travel to another country before I can actually meet people and then start doing a lot of stuff which is actually against the society values. So technology as a tool on its own is not the main problem as tagged, but it is the people themselves that actually make use of the tool to define what becomes of them. So it is not really acceptable to say technology itself is the reason why we are having illiterates, because trust me, even without technology we raised more illiterates. Because it was with the introduction of technology we are able to actually reduce illiteracy, because even in the process of them trying to build their illiteracy, somehow technology still introduces to them, somehow technology still educates them along the line. Because naturally you begin to realize that a child of 10 years old, 12 years old now knows a lot of stuff that ordinarily, if he was to go to the conventional way of learning, go to school, you know, I personally didn't touch a computer until my degree 1. But in this age, you can literally see 6 years, 5 years old young kids that are already operating computers. They have an idea of how it works. Somehow boost their learning system in the education process. So holistically, you can't just conclude that technology is bringing or raising illiterates. We need to define that word from the angle at which he is talking from. He's talking from the angle of the social life of people online, which is actually something you cannot stop. Because even without technology, people have been doing this thing. Technology only exposed it.
All right, Phillips. Now, you said something that really interests me. You spoke about the usage of technology. Also, one of the major issues there is not the tool. It's not technology itself, but the people that are using it might possibly want to use it to perpetrate a lot of unreasonable things. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Now, I believe that as a software inventor, when you are building an application or software, there should be a measure of you trying to minimize. You need to have a foresight into what you are building to say that, okay, this thing that I'm going to let out will be a very massive thing when it comes to positive usage. But also, you should be able to have a foresight of how people can manipulate and use it in a very bad way. Then that is why we have, maybe on our television, we have a lot of things on our decoders, we have parental controls. So now, looking at this situation, do you think software researchers and people that have invented software have done enough when it comes to regulating these situations, especially for people not to be able to use it in a bad way?
As far as technology has moved and as far as it is right now, I believe most developers are at their peak of making sure vices are being curbed. But you see, anything that has to do with human being, even God cannot curb human being. Why do you think a human can curb a human? You see, anything that has to involve human being, you can only try to curb to the limit at which you understand. At least, for example, Facebook, as an example, has an automated system that automatically takes down any picture that shows sexual or graphic violent content. When it has to do with blood, there's an artificial intelligence that monitors all, in fact, including live videos. When you go live, if you try to broadcast some graphical content that are against what societal standards should be, there's a way they flag it down. But you see, it still does not stop people from broadcasting it. And you know, this is a computer system, this is an AI software, which will not be 100% accurate. When people understand that this thing flags this, they try to bypass, they try to study how it works, and then try to bypass just to get there. desires next. So in the software part, I can say the developers are actually trying their best, because all these measures are even in place on TikTok. There was a video that went viral some time ago. I believe I was even watching a commentary on it yesterday on TikTok. The something fish. There was some kind of graphical content that was not really sensible for eyes to see. I mean, the algorithm of TikTok brought it down almost immediately. But so, people will still be like, I need to see that video. I need to see that video. So in the real sense, you begin to realize that it is not actually the technology, it is actually the people that are using the technology. So the developers are actually trying their best, and with the use of artificial intelligence, currently we can actually say that it's making it more easier to curb the disadvantaged side of it. But nonetheless,
that is the exact point I want to come in now. Trying to understand the place of Professor Wole Soyinka. We understand that when we talk about human efficiency in doing works and doing their day-to-day activities online, on the system, on the internet, we usually see a lot of thinking from the human side. But right now, we have a lot of artificial intelligence apps that do a lot of things for them. I think that's the perspective of Wole Soyinka, talking about creating generation of modern illiterates. If you look at it from that aspect, don't you think the use of AI and the use of technology in such aspects, especially in our day-to-day activities, is really breaking down the efficiency of human resources when it comes to work and making work done efficiently?
Yeah.
Okay, recent study on artificial intelligence, I came to a conclusion that AI can never replace human being, because AI is actually created by human being. So that fear needs to be sorted out. AI will remain AI. AI is an assistant. Come to think of it, if you have a personal assistant in your work, will your assistant replace your work or enhance your work? I mean, it would be stupidity to be thinking that your personal assistant might end up taking your job. It means you were not fit for the job in the first instance, because you were supposed to man the job and get a personal assistant to assist you, that is, to enhance your productivity. Come to think about AI as what is making people illiterate, I disagree, because when you understand the real purpose of AI and you make use of AI, you realize that it's actually enhance your work. I'm supposed to write a script for 100 people. It's going to take me 3 months or 5 months, actually, if I'm going to do that on my own. But with AI, I can actually deliver it in less than 2 weeks, and it will be original, because I'm not just telling AI, hey, write this script for me, and I copy and I'm sending to my client. No, I'm leveraging on the advantage of the use of AI for the content generation. Then I sit, I analyze, I re-strategize. Instead of me to crack my brain from scratch, I'm taking advantage of AI to do the cracking for me. I mean, thousands of people have cracked their brain on this same course of study. Why should I still crack my brain? That is what AI does. It collects all this data from people who has done the job and then gives it to you. So I'm just continuing from where they stop.
Don't you see that as malpractice? Because right now, you said a lot of people have done this research. So why do I need to crack my brain? So I just need somebody ideas
now,
to
now
use
the question
and
about research
on it and get
let me ask you a
own.
question.
Now, if you are conversant with AI and a lot of generations, of course, you will remember, you will notice that there are a lot of repetitions of things, repetition of language and phrases. So if you see these things all together, don't you think is really correlating with what Professor Wole Soyinka has said?
Okay, now let me explain further. I'm not talking about phrases edit or sentences edit as what Wole Soyinka is actually tackling. A lot of people use AI for that. What I'm trying to say is, for every research work is a continuation of the past research. That is what research actually means. You are not actually creating a new content. You are actually starting from where people stopped. Every research work is a collation of the past research and a projection of what you suggest. That is exactly what AI is doing. Every data in AI for public use are not privatized content that people cannot use. I don't know if you understand that.
Yeah, of course.
Every privatized content are not legal to be used in an AI software. And that's why the US are actually working on AI laws because of the rise and decrease of the use of AI, that data that are in this AI machine or AI systems need to be monitored, because you can't just go and put somebody's premium research for people to just be manipulating anyhow. Every data on AI are basic knowledge everybody should know, and that is the reason why it is called an assistant. It is a technical assistant. So it is supposed to enhance your basic generation purpose. For example, I'm a graphic designer. I don't need to crack my brain to think on which content to use. I mean, I can just go to a pool of content that is available on the public. That is what AI does. It gathers all this information. I mean, manually, I still do them. I go to Google, I go to Pixel, I go to a lot of sites, gather them together. Now, instead of me to waste so much time, I can just instruct AI to do that job for me, save more time and efficiency. That's the primary purpose of AI. So the data in the AI database system are not actually serious data, because if you use AI very well, when you make some prompts, it is going to give you a feedback that, sorry, according to my database system, I do not have this information. I would recommend you go to so-so website to get it. That is how AI works. So
that's true.
Basically, it is supposed to be a personal assistant. For example, you are a TV broadcaster. You might want to write some script or something. Instead of to sit down to crack your brain on how the script framework should look like, the AI can just basically generate a framework for you, and then you begin to look into it. No, I'm going to put this at the last. I'm handing this up. Instead of you to sit down and then sleep over it, maybe 4 days, 5 days. AI is helping you, cutting time, making you more productive. I mean, better use of English anyways.
All right, so out of curiosity, I want to ask this. Why Nigeria? Because, I mean, economic breakdown, infrastructure, production, I mean, all sector. It's more like Nigeria, it's facing some kind of negative narrative being tapped to it. Now, he made mention of Arab Spring, where they used social media to pass information, create awareness during the uprising. I mean, where is Nigeria getting it wrong? Where are we getting it wrong when it comes to technology, when it comes to communication, when it comes to economics? I mean, all round, where are we getting it wrong? Because I mean, someone might say maybe because he's from Nigeria, but I mean, there are other countries who probably are having one or two similar challenges, but we seem to put the spotlight on Nigeria. I mean, why Nigeria? That's the question.
To start with, I'm going to say because we have improper infrastructure. Improper infrastructure is the root cause of all this problem, because to be realistic, Nigeria as a whole is far from what technology represents. Okay. If you see any singular Nigerian, I mean, people like me, people like other people who are thriving in technology, they are not thriving because they are depending on Nigeria ecosystem to thrive. They are thriving on extra miles. For example, internet facilities, lights as a system. These are all the things that rallies around and bounce back to our productivity level. Now, because all these things are not in place, it places a strong limit on how far we can go in technology. So because we have all these limits, what we now do is we try to maneuver way to get results with what someone who has a standard equipment is trying to get. So on the long run, we end up not getting it right the way it should be. So the root cause is where we need to tackle first before we come back into technology. I mean, an average Nigerian cannot even get a standard job remotely. They are just going to tell you that you cannot connect with us on the internet, or maybe there's a meeting tomorrow and then you are not having light, your street is already having light issues. So there's a lot of factors. So before you know it, we cannot actually meet up the industry standard of what technology is right now. So that is the missing link for Nigerian technology as a whole ecosystem. And that is the reason why we are now having the reverse psychology on everything we are bringing out, talk about our social media activity, talk about our productivity, even in the technology ecosystem.
All right. You said a lot of things, especially talking about things that are still hindering us in able to, for us to harness the positive side and the good side of technology. Now, let's bring it back to our economy as a nation, our infrastructure as a nation, our education as a nation, especially the education. Do you think we really need to inculcate more of technology into our curriculum? Now, if we have to do that, we need a lot of spending. Do you think Nigeria as a nation also have the power to shoulder such economic kind of situation?
Actually, spending on technology doesn't cost as much as what we do on other things we're spending on. I mean, setting up a technical firm does not really cost so much. It's not a cost actually compared to what we see on news every day, that they spend so amount of billion to do this, and at the end of the day we don't see anything. So if you ask me, yes, Nigeria has the facility, we have the resources, and the blessing part of it is that we have enough competent human resources to facilitate all these things. But the missing link is what I don't understand: implementation. Our implementation of policies is very, very poor. And that is the reason why you always see new policies every day, but none is being done. And that is where I think we need to look into the implementation policy. If the implementation of what we say we want to do, if they come into reality, Nigeria will have gone farther than this.
Okay, you made mention of policies and implementation, but I want to believe that for every government, there's what we call priorities. And on the agenda of every government, the priorities of what they really want to achieve has been top-notch for them to really push. Now, I want to believe that, is it that Nigeria as a nation has not really prioritized technology, improving it to develop their country as a nation? That is one. Secondly, do you think, because now if you talk about technology, we talk about modern age, we talk about the Gen Zs, we talk about the young ones. Do you think the age is a big factor for Nigeria, especially looking at our leaders? You look at their age, bringing it down to them understanding what technology really stands for, because of course you go on the news daily, you see that tell you technology is the new oil, is the new this, is the new that, and each time I look at it like, okay, if technology is the new oil, why are we not harnessing it? So do you think age also is a barrier with our leaders?
Okay, starting with your first question, I would say that, okay, let me start with the second question so I don't forget. Now, for the aspect of the age barrier, no, I won't say age is a barrier, because when we say we have a leader, we don't have a single leader. I believe they have a committee, and we have ministers in different areas. What we have is actually misplaced priorities, because you need to understand what runs a country is not a centralized, it's not one department. You don't focus on one department. I mean, you can't run a company by focusing on the gatesman alone, or you say you want to focus on the manager and then you leave the staffs. No, you make sure there's enough balance. To start with, our database system is wrong. When you get to working countries, there is only one single database system. It is in Nigeria that you are going to realize that you can have a name on BVN and you have another name entirely on national identity card, and have another name entirely on a driver license. The same person, the same face, the same fingerprint, but different names. So that is where we are. That is that's the least thing that should have been sorted for, because improper database system means you cannot even track anybody. You cannot even know who is who. Nigeria as a whole does not know how many citizens they actually have. I mean, technologically. I'm not talking about census. US does not need to do census to know how many people are in their country. I mean, they can statistically give you every minute who stepped out, who came in, because they have a strong database system. This is where the major problems are coming from. And it will be shocking that the cost of setting up a database system is what they spend in a single day. So you realize that it's not as if we don't have enough facility or capacity to do it. It is just misplaced priority. We focus on things that we think are important, though they are important, yes, but we now neglect things that are more important, and that is causing a backlash. So when we now begin to see the end product, end result, we will now say, no, don't mind it, technology is actually bad. It's because we are not taking advantage of technology.
Okay,
That's
so
why
I mean,
it's
speaking
coming
of
out to us negative.
misplaced priority, sorry to cut you. Speaking of misplaced priority, can we say illiteracy is a factor? Now, I heard some persons say this, that most of the people in authority, I'm saying this with all respect though, to an extent, are not educated. Forgive me. And some time back, I mean, we had some issues with our presidency certificate, whether it was forged, whether it was not accurate, and all of that. And there is a saying that what you don't know or have an idea about, you may not necessarily value it. So would we say that illiteracy is a factor when it comes to misplacement of priority?
Well, I'm going to say I partly agree to that, because when the people that are supposed to implement the policy does not understand the policy, they won't want to implement it. So if we are seeing that the policy is not being implemented, obviously they don't understand the worth and the value of it. Because if someone who is very highly technical enters into power, you're going to see the reflection. When you see someone that is, everybody will always reflect what their best of interest is actually. So we can agree to that part of the reasons why we are not seeing the responses in that side is because people who are there are not actually, they don't actually have the full knowledge of how it's, take for example, recently I'm just realizing that Nigeria just embraced blockchain technology as a whole. I mean, they've been fighting it all this while because they don't understand it, they don't understand how it works. And recently, CBN as an institution is currently learning about blockchain technology, because I'm privileged to be part of those who have the advantage to know those who are training them. I'm not part of those who are training them, but I have relationship with some people who are in such a relationship. Now, it means peradventure they knew what advantage blockchain will bring into Nigeria. They wouldn't have fought it in the beginning. Now they are coming to realization that this thing we are fighting actually is going to be, I mean, in the US, they tax every crypto transaction. That is a huge revenue system for them. But because Nigerian financial board does not even understand what it is and how it works, they just felt like, no, they use it for fraud, we don't want it in our country, and then they place a ban on it. And then, unfortunately, Nigeria grew to be the largest, the country that actually moves the largest volume in the crypto industry, even upon the ban, because people switch to peer-to-peer. And then they begin to realize that, see, this thing is unstoppable. How do we just come into place? And what is it even all about? It is when their eyes are open, they begin to realize that, oh, this is even something we should have embraced, inculcate into our system, and even make more money from it, and even transform the system. So I believe, yes, literacy in that field is very, very, very important for those who are actually in charge. So to now come back and say technology is creating illiterate is because people who are supposed to facilitate that technology are actually the ones.
All right, Spirit, we are really out of time now, but in just 1 minute, I would like you to give your final word to people that are in the private sector, technology-wise, what they really need to do with the general public, how we need to embrace technology and also make use of it judiciously for the general masses in Nigeria.
Yeah, what I'm going to say is that in the side of the private sector, people who are developing technological tools, application softwares, websites, and the likes. What I'm going to say is that, especially in Nigeria, because recently now we have an uprise in development process in Nigeria. I mean, people are coming up with a lot of fantastic ideas now. What I'm going to say is that we must understand our audience, especially targeting Nigeria. We must understand who they are and what they want. Because if you don't understand who they are, you would realize that your good intentions will end up becoming manipulated. And at the end of the day, they are going to tag the owner of the apps, not the people using it. I mean, what people will call it tomorrow is Facebook, YouTube, is I saw it on Facebook. Whereas it's actually somebody in your street that posted it on Facebook. But what people will say is that I saw it on Facebook. Facebook is bad. So that is just what I'm going to say. And then in the side of this, the country as a whole, I mean, as a system, the people in charge of our ICT, the technology, the government, and even the private sector, because I understand it is not only the government, even the private sector. I mean, people facilitating technology process, people like us have an academy that train people, and then, you know, people that train people in technology, people that bring more people into technology, needs to inculcate the pros and cons, because the enthusiasm of joining technology, sometimes words of the implication of learning technology most times for people until they enter into it, and then they begin to realize that this, that. So what I'm going to say is that there must be proper orientation process while onboarding people into technology. These are the pros, these are the cons, and then once these are put in place, I believe there's going to be a better improvement. And what I'm going to say in conclusion is that Nigeria will actually become one of the best technology place in future.
All right. Thank you very much for your wealth of wisdom in analyzing the topic we've brought before you, and thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's nice having a conversation with you.
All right. Thank you very much. And I must say, viewers, I must say thank you too for sitting and also learning from our analysts that came into the studio via Skype with us, and I was on program. Technology is good, of course, for whatever invention that you see on the social media, wherever you see it, wherever you meet it. There's a good side and there's a bad side. It depends on the user. What you use and how you use it is what we define what you are using. So please, whenever we find ourselves using technologies, let's make sure that we use the positive side and to change our world and make Nigeria as a nation and the whole world a better place for everybody to be. Right now, we'll be handing you over to our Lagos studio, which we believe we have more well-packaged program for you to enjoy. From us here, I remain Michael Obagiri.
And until next time, I'm Kareen Edet.